Hi, my name is Ashley Clayton, and this is my 100th take at actually recording this week's discussion post. So, this week's discussion post is on the study by Elizabeth Daniels on sex objects, athletes, and sexy athletes, how the media representations of women athletes can impact adolescent girls and college women. I actually thought this was super impactful. I come from a family of athletes, and so I understand the importance of representation in that way. I actually have a 15-year-old niece that currently plays basketball for a private school in San Diego. And when I read this article, I instantly called her, or actually she was in the house with me. So I called her in the room and I had her discussing the article with me and just kind of wanted to gauge her views on how she thinks female athletes are portrayed, because she is a female athlete herself and she falls in the demographic of what this study was actually attempting to discuss. So, jumping into this week's discussion post, I'm going to be discussing the research, what Daniel's hypothesis was, and how she went about studying it. I'm going to tie that into what we've been learning so far this week. And then I'm also going to be discussing how we as Christians can use this information to impact the world, and how we can just go out there and preach the gospel and get people to understand that through God, we do not have to stress over things such as body image, because we are created in his image. He loves us for who we are, and what we look like does not matter to him. God loves all of his children. And I'm going to jump into that and discuss how we as Christians can utilize this study to preach that to people, to go out and spread the gospel. I'm also going to go ahead and propose a way to utilize this research to help adolescent girls, such as my niece, understand that body image isn't everything. It's really not. What really matters is who we are as individuals. And as an athlete, what really matters is how we're performing and how we're doing on the field and how we're doing on the court. That's what really matters as an athlete. So, in this, typically studies focus on the negative aspects of body image and how whenever we see things on TV, they can negatively impact us. We actually watched a video earlier this week on mass media and body image that discussed how body image is a major issue amongst young women. Actually, in the beginning of the video, it showcased a woman, a model, who suffered from anorexia, and after a picture was taken, she died the next day. And that is horrible. But with all the negative does come positive. The media can highlight and showcase body image in positive ways. And that's what Elizabeth Daniels was attempting to show. She was analyzing female athletes from all different facets. She was analyzing analyzing performance athletes, sexualized models, and non-sexualized models, and focus on how these different images impacted adolescent girls and college women and their tendency to self-objectify. So, Daniels actually had a couple different hypotheses to what she expected from this study. One, she expected participants in the performance athletes condition would display less self-objectification by describing themselves, and they would use more physical statements compared to athletes who were looking at the other conditions. She hypothesized that participants in the sexualized conditions would display more state-like self-objectification. and would focus more on beauty standards when describing themselves as compared to the non-sexualized conditions. She also believed that participants in the performance athletes study would describe themselves using more physical statements as opposed to beauty statements. And the people that used sexualized conditions and the non-sexualized condition, and at least one of the non-sexualized conditions, would describe themselves with more beauty standards as opposed to physical ability. And she would also go on, there's quite a few hypotheses. She would also go on to hypothesize that performance athletes would also utilize non-body statements compared to other conditions. So to sum this all up, people who were focused on athletic capabilities would describe their bodies from an athletic standpoint. And people who were given these studies on that contributed to sexualized objectification would be more inclined to describe their physical aspects from beauty standards. So, based off of like their body shape and things of that nature. How Daniels went about doing this was she used objectification theory and sociocultural theory. Objectification theory proposes that societal objectification of women results in their tendency to view themselves from an outsider's perspective or as an object. Sociocultural theory holds that societal factors influence our development and maintenance of our body based upon what we see the culture values, empathizes, and displays. So what beauty ideals and what body shape images are put into the world, that's what we're going to intake, and that's going to affect us. She studied these two theories with 350 adolescent girls and 225 college women who completed a measure of body objectification after viewing images. So what she did was she took these two different groups of women and showed them different photos that fell into the subcategories mentioned in the hypothesis and measured their reactions after the images were given to them. Sorry I keep pausing. I took like hecka notes and I want to like make sure I'm reading my notes. So what she found was performance athletes, as she hypothesized, had less self-objectification. And by coming to this conclusion, it can be suggested that these images need to be displayed in the media more. We need to see more Serena Williams out there. We need to see more athletes that are not being objectified in this way. We need to see more athletes who their focus is on their skill set. By focusing on a female athlete's performance, girls will see themselves as more than just their body. They'll see themselves as as being physically capable of accomplishing anything, that they don't have to use their physical body and objectify themselves to be able to obtain the things they want in life, especially from an athletic standpoint. We have plenty of athletes. FloJo, which is one of the most prominent track runners of all time, was not pushed for, granted, she was very pretty, but she was not pushed for her body image. She was put out into the world. The image that we were constantly shown of FloJo was the fact that she was an amazing track star. And by continuing to add those images into the media, young girls will see themselves in a more positive manner. And as Christians, we should want this. And as Christians, we do want this. God loves all of his children, and he wants all of us to understand, by being made in his image, that we are valuable, that we are important. Regardless of how we feel about ourselves, that we have a purpose beyond our physical image, beyond our body, our mind and our soul, and our physical capabilities that he gave us. He gave us our ability to run. He gave us our ability to shoot hoops so well. He gave us all of those skills. Lisa Leslie is not an amazing basketball player just simply because she tries hard. No, God gave her those capabilities. And it is by teaching young women to understand this that we can help them develop their self-worth. As long as we can continue to give our hearts to God and teach young women to give their hearts to God and to never doubt themselves, they can overcome any doubts that they might have about their appearance. Lastly, I want to propose a way to utilize this research to actually reach this population. Many minority women are not adequately portrayed in the media. And when they are, it's to various extremes of body image. One of the things that the study did show is that there was not a drastic difference in how women across different ethnicities perceived the images that they were given. However, in our textbook, it is discussed in the chapter on body image how minority women are not affected to the same degree. So with that information in mind, it can be inferred the reason why there was not such a drastic difference is because we are not given the opportunity to consistently see ourselves in that light. So when we see ourselves in that light, we're going to intake whatever we're being given because we're never given it. So I believe that one of the best ways to help overcome this is by providing more opportunities for women, particularly minority women, to see themselves in these positive lights. Sports Illustrated for Kids, I believe Sports Illustrated for Kids is still around. Sports Illustrated for Kids can do more than just one cover where they're showcasing a minority woman, which is typically during whatever Heritage Month that it represents. As minority athletes, they are typically made fun of for a lot of their physical features. So by seeing that their physical features are irrelevant, by